Hey everyone, this is Greg. In this video, I want to talk about the element timing option in Canva, which allows you to time out an element in its animation precisely with the sound effect you may have. So for example, looking at this graphic right here, if I right click, I have this option of show timing. And when I do, then suddenly on my timeline, I can see this specific flower element and I can position it so it lines up with other elements in my timeline like this ding sound effect. Now, there are some cases where you will not see this hide timing, show timing option in your menu when you right click on an item. So I want to show you exactly how to get to it. And then we're going to talk about the bigger question of, does this now allow Canva to be a good platform or the right platform if you're someone who wants to create maybe simple videos for YouTube that have some basic animation of different elements and you have sound effects you want to time with those elements. In other words, how do we do this? And is Canva now a good platform, a good piece of software for doing that, or should we look elsewhere? We're going to seek to answer that question in this video. The inspiration for this video comes from a student question in one of my Canva courses I teach over on Udemy, so I can link that course below if anybody's interested. But basically I have the student Donna who says the following. She says, one of the main reasons I bought this course is to learn how to make videos and become good at video editing. I want to learn how to use timing elements and sound effects to make YouTube videos that feature those effects. And then she shows a couple of links that are examples of videos in the style that she wants to make. So thanks for the question, Donna. And I'm just going to play a really quick portion of one of the videos she linked. So this is from Quiz Monster. I'll link this below if anybody wants to see the full video, but let's just play a quick portion of this video.
Pancake!
And I'm just going to stop it right there because we don't really need to see a lot of this video. What I just wanted you to see about this video is it contains a lot of graphics that just pop up on screen, and the timing of that graphic popping up syncs with the sound effect that plays on the video. So can we create this style of video where you have sort of different elements appearing on the screen and timing it out with sound effects in your project? So let's jump over to Canva, and we're going to look within Canva and decide whether Canva can do these things. We're going to find out if it can do these things. And then if it can, is it a good choice? Is it the right platform for this type of video creation and this type of video editing? Okay, so here we are on the Canva home screen. You're probably familiar with this. This is just where you launch your projects and you choose what type of format you want your project to be in. And so here I see there's an option for a blank presentation, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels. And here a blank video, 1920 by 1080. Okay, so these are both the exact same dimensions. Does it really matter if I'm just creating a blank presentation or a blank project, I should say? Does it matter whether I choose presentation or video? Well, yes, actually it does. It actually is crucial if you want to work with element timing within Canva. Let me just show you what I mean. So I have two projects which I've created. One I clicked on presentation and the other I clicked on video. So let me just go to that presentation one. So here is the presentation one I created. And then once I did it, I just dragged over onto my screen, onto my timeline, three different flower elements here. And now if I look at these different elements, I can click on these different elements. And if I right click on any of these or use these three dots, I'll bring up a contextual menu, which gives you some more option, but I do not see a timing option. Normally this is where I'm used to being able to go under here and I see a timing option. Well, let me just show you. I'll actually recreate this whole project, resize this whole project, and I'm gonna go run the resize and I'm gonna choose video. So this is the type of project we would have gotten had we chosen that video option from the home screen. So I'm going to go ahead and choose copy and resize. Now this resize is a pro feature, but if you don't have the pro feature, you can of course just start your project as a video. But I just wanted to show you now that we are now in this video format. And so now if I scroll forward to where I have those flowers on my timeline, now if I click on one of these, now if I right click or use these three dots, now suddenly I have this show timing option. Okay, and when I click this, then suddenly I see a timeline element, sort of like another part of my timeline here. I get another row for just this flower element. And if I were to come over to this one there, now I have something for just this flower element. If I come to this one again, because I have that show timing option turned on, now I see and I can adjust where this particular element comes into my timeline and then leaves my timeline. So in other words, this is my playhead here. I don't see the flower on my playhead, but if I were to drag this and drag it out, I actually can't drag it beyond just one slide. So within one slide here, I actually have to resize it within here, but now suddenly it's not going to appear on my page until I hit that part of my timeline where I see this blue graphic here. And if you ever want to see your timeline more clearly here, you have this option here to zoom your page, but if you click on that, then suddenly you're zooming in on your timeline, zoom thumbnails. So now if I drag this slider, you'll notice that my timeline here is scaling up and getting bigger. So it makes it a little easier to make those finite adjustments and come in here and change just exactly where this flower graphic is going to pop in and show on my page. And this element timing is crucial if we want to do the precise sort of controlling when something appears within your video and controlling the ability to match it up precisely with a sound effect, which is what Donna was getting at with her question. And again, if I come back over here to the project that's just in presentation mode, or we started as a presentation and we did not start as a video, then suddenly I do not have that show timing option. So this is one of those sort of quirks of Canva that annoys me a little bit. It's frustrating because I wish you would just always get that show timing option, because sometimes you might start a project in one format and then realize, oh, I do want this to be a video, and to not have that option in here is a little annoying and a little confusing. But just know, if you do then bring this over into a video project, you are then once again going to have this show timing option. Okay, so let's take this show timing option and let's work through it and see how now we could use this show timing option to get the video audio tracks or sound effects to match up with the animation of these different elements we're going to bring into our video. Okay, so each of these flowers, each of these design elements, I got to my project by coming under the Elements tab and then doing a search. So I searched for something like flower, and I think went under graphics, and then here's where I found elements. So that's one of the advantages of using a platform like Canva, is there are tons and tons of sort of stock graphics, photos, videos, and audio clips that you have access to, especially if you are a Pro Canva member, then you get access to even more of these elements. So that is something that is an advantage of this platform. You have lots of built-in elements that might work well in this type of video where you're using some simple graphics and some simple video. Now, you could also come under the Uploads tab and upload your own items, but it's also nice to just search and see what's available within Canva. So let's add some audio now. So same thing, I'm just going to search for something like ding. I'm under graphics now, but I want to go out to all, and then I'm going to go specifically under audio. And then if you want to preview any of these, you can just hit the play button. So that's just a very basic ding sound, but that's going to work for my purposes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this, and my playhead's here, so I'm just going to drag this over onto my project, drag it onto your timeline, it says. So I'm just going to drag it right onto my timeline and release it. Now we see we have this other element right here, and we can see the waveform on our timeline. Again, you can zoom in even farther on your thumbnails on your timeline, so I can zoom in even farther. And now if I drag my playhead to just before this and hit the space bar or the play button to get it to play, we can see we do get that ding effect on our timeline. So we added a sound effect to our project here. Now, how do we get this to sync up exactly with these elements appearing on screen? Well, we know now that we could control the precise positioning of when these come and leave the screen now with that element timing option. So for example, with this flower here, if I did not want it to show up until this portion of the timeline here, again, I'm going to turn off this element timing, just hide it for a second. So you might find yourself in this situation. When you get into this, you want to make sure you turn it on. So we're going to turn on that show timing option. And then right here at the playhead, this is where we want that flower to appear, not right at the beginning of this page, but not until right here. So I could drag this timeline here, and then now as we drag the playhead before it, we notice we don't see it until boom, right there. And then if that's also where we want our sound to play, that ding, we can drag that over. And now if I drag this and then I hit the play button or the space bar just to preview this, we can see that we get this to pop on the screen right at that moment. Now, you're only seeing the element timing here for one item at a time. So if I wanted to see and position this next flower, I could bring it here. Maybe I'm going to have that appear a little later in the timeline. Again, I'll add this ding towards the end, and then even later after that, Maybe I'm going to drag this one towards the very end. And again, this ding here, you'll notice that it starts to sort of resize the portion of this audio clip playing because you have to stay within the allotted time of your frame here. And I don't have anything after this, but I could make this bigger just by going like that. And then you'll notice now that I can sort of come in here and make sure that this full audio is playing and positioned. So let's just position at the beginning right there where the playhead is. And so now if I drag this all the way back and let me come and find that first flower, it goes all the way to the end of the timeline. This next one goes all the way to the end here, but let's check. And you'll notice that these are now out of sync. This is one of my issues, which I'll get to in a minute. But first, let me just drag here. Here's where this flower shows up. Let's drag that here. Let's go to the next flower. So the next flower is going to show up right here. We need to make a duplicate of this. So let's make a duplicate track. So let's just hit Control C and then Control V. And so now we have a second audio clip here. And that's going to line up with this one here precisely. So let's get our playhead and just move that along. And then let's move our playhead. Here's the third one. So again, we need to make a copy of this track, duplicate track. We can also do Control C, Control V, paste it, and then make sure we're lining up these here. So we'll line that up. And so now we should have all of these. Let's hit play. And we see as each of them appears, that ding sound will play. Now let's go back to that first flower. Let's imagine that, okay, this one here, we wanted to show up, but then we wanted to disappear when the next one comes on screen or just show for a second. So we could, of course, change the timing like this. We could come to this next flower here. We could change the timing like this. And then we could come to the next flower here and we could change the timing like this. So you're controlling not only when they come on the screen and are visible, but also when that visibility goes away. So let's hit play again. We can see that one will appear and the other will disappear. Okay, so yes, you can create videos like this in Canva where you have these different animated elements and you can sync them up in your timeline with the audio by using this show timing. Now the part of this we didn't go over yet is animating your elements, but if you click on any element here, you can go under the animate option and you have all these different options. So maybe you wanted to do this pop effect, and then when you do that, you can control whether you want it to do when it enters the screen, when it leaves the screen. Maybe we just wanted to do it on enter, and that's where we're gonna have our sound effect. So now if I do this and scroll back, we'll see that now you have that little animation. And again, this one doesn't have an animation, but let's go to the beginning of that. Let's click on this here and give it that same pop effect, and we'll just drag back here. So now you can build in that animation and sync it up with the audio. Now, you saw when I resized this timeline here that suddenly my audio was out of sync. This gets to the question of whether Canva is the right platform for this. If you get into advanced video editing, Canva is certainly not the tool I would recommend for you. But for simple editing, it may be good enough. It really is going to depend on your purposes, but there are issues where I still think it has a lot of room for growth. And this is one of those particular issues because this is something I find annoying. So let me just scroll back farther in my timeline. We can see that there's also a title here. So when this title animates, I can try to sync it up with this bubble sound that I have. So I can say right here it comes in. Maybe I want to drag this all the way back to the beginning and then play this. And I have that animation with the sound. However, I also have these synced up here. But what if I suddenly come in here and say, okay, I have extra space here on this particular page within my timeline. I know I can drag it and sort of reduce the amount of time that this runs for. Right now, this particular thing is 3.5 seconds. But let's say I want to trim some off the end. Well, I can hover over the end here. I'm going to see these arrows. I can trim this. But notice when I do that, only this central part of my timeline is moving. The sounds here aren't moving, but this sort of animation, which is connected, in other words, the flower element is on this central part of the timeline. So the position of my flower elements changed, but all of my sort of elevator ding sounds did not change position. So now if I play this now, you can see that my timing is all messed up. So what I'd have to do here is I'd have to come in and I'd have to reposition this, and then we're going to drag forward. Here's this. Suddenly I have to reposition this sound. So this is sort of one of my pet peeves of Canva, and where I think there's definitely still room for growth. If you come back and once you've set up all these timings, you go trim another portion of your video, that can throw all your audio timings out of sync with the elements on your page. And this is just where I feel like Canva is not yet that advanced of a video editor. Now, if you know that this problem exists and you're creating relatively simple videos, then yes, I think you can avoid this problem. Just make sure you don't do those types of trims. Make sure you have your video looking pretty much like you want it, and then add in those audio effects at the end once you know you're not going to have to trim anything from the main timeline. Then Canva can certainly work for creating this type of simple video for YouTube. Yes, it can work. But if you want to get into more advanced video editing, and you know you might want to do these types of trims as you're sort of doing the whole video editing, then that's where Canva's still going to let you down a little bit. So that's when you might want to look into some other video options, some other video software options. So let me just show you a couple briefly that you might want to look into. Again, I love Canva. I think it's great. It's great for so many things. There are some advantages to using it, like the built-in stock library where you have tons of assets. But if you get into advanced video editing, it still can let you down. There is some room for growth. So I think hopefully they'll iron out some of these bugs. It's going to be really good for this sort of thing in the future. But I don't think it's ever going to replace advanced video software like Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro. So let me just talk about those really quickly and some other options just so you know what's available to you. Okay, so the first software I want to show you is just Camtasia. And Camtasia by TechSmith, that is the software I use for creating this type of YouTube video. So that's what I'm using right now to record this. It's a software that's great for screen capture, and then it gives you really nice options when you actually come in to edit your video. So one of the big advantages over a program like this in Canva is just that it gives you a better timeline where you have multiple tracks. You can add lots and lots of tracks. It's a lot easier to keep things different. You can see multiple elements all at once. You don't have to bring up element timing and see it for just one element at a time. You can see it all right here at once. So if I come in here now and just play this, I've just simulated a couple items on screen where it's going to show an element and then I have it synced up with the timing. And it's super easy because you can just come in here, you can grab different elements, you can move it around, you have all these different timelines you can work with. So it's just easier to work with. And the other thing is here, let's imagine that I wanted to keep this part right here the same, but I wanted to get rid of some of this here. Well, inside a program like this and other programs that are good video editors, you have something where you can really select easily, highlight a portion of your audio and video, and then you can do something called a ripple edit, where it's going to go ahead and it's going to remove that portion, but it's going to bring everything else, match it up in your timeline so you don't have any gaps in your timeline, and it's going to keep everything synced. It's going to remove that gap from all the different tracks. It's not going to be like in Canva where suddenly your audio and video are out of sync because it just adjusts your main timeline and it doesn't adjust the sound part of your clip. So that's my issue with Canva. Remember when we did that trim in Canva, suddenly our audio was out of sync with all those different visual elements on screen. You're not going to have that in other software. So again, Camtasia is sort of a platform you have to pay for. So I will link to the TechSmith site, but it is a worthwhile investment, especially if you're ever doing something like recording screen capture, if you want to have the ability to do voiceover easier. It's just a better video recording, video editing platform than Canva is. Now, can you use Canva for some simple videos? Absolutely. I think it all just depends. If you need a more advanced option, something like Camtasia might be something you want to look into. Now, I'll mention a couple other platforms that you potentially might want to look into. There are the options from Adobe. So Adobe Premiere Pro, that's sort of the standard in video editing. So that's going to be really good software. However, you are going to pay a premium for that. It says right here, plans start at $20 a month. But then they also do have a Premiere Elements, which is sort of a simplified version of the editor, and you can get that for a one-time purchase of $100 basically. So that's a cheaper option. That's a one-time purchase instead of that recurring monthly model where you subscribe. So that is an option. And then if you ever really get into like special effects or something, they also have their After Effects, which again is going to be a subscribe option. It's going to be pricey because it is, again, a higher end solution that people that get really into special effects. Then you have Adobe After Effects. And then on the Mac side of things, there is Final Cut Pro. Like Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro is basically an industry standard in terms of video editing. But again, these Adobe options, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro, I think those are sort of on the professional side of things if you really get into the day-to-day work of editing videos. If you're doing something simpler like YouTube, again, you can use Canva if you just recognize the things I talked about in this video, if you understand the shortcomings. But then also there is that Premiere Elements you can try out for just $100, and all of these have a free trial, so you could try the free trial and see if it was worth your time. And then also you can, of course, just type best free video editing software into Google, and you're going to see lots and lots of options. I just haven't tested these enough to comment on any one of them particularly, but you can test out and find other options. So again, let's just review. Inside of Canva, if you're doing video editing and you really want to sort of sync the timing of visual elements with audio elements in the same project file, then you really have to come in, you have to select the element in question that you want to set up timing with, and you have to come in and you have to show timing. Now it's showing now, so I'll hide it, but again, just come in here, use these three dots, show timing, and then you'll be able to really adjust the precise positioning of when this first shows on your timeline and then when it no longer shows on your timeline, and then you can move around the audio track to get it to match up. But just remember, to see the show timing option, you have to be in a video project. If you start a presentation or some other kind of project in Canva and you come under these three dots, you're not going to find the show timing option. And then a limitation of Canva, if you come in here and you start making adjustments, lining up video elements or these visual elements with your audio, but then you come somewhere else in your timeline and you do an edit where you go ahead and you like trim the timeline or something, then you'll notice that this main timeline shifts along with the audio, but this shifts, but the audio did not shift, so now they are out of sync. So just be careful if you do your video editing in Canva. You want to make sure you don't shift the main timeline after you've already lined up your audio and video elements, because that will leave them out of sync. So you do have to think about your workflow, but if you do this and you're creating relatively simple YouTube videos or videos, I think Canva still can work as a video editor. Just know if you get into really advanced editing, then you might want to move beyond Canva to one of those more professional options, Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, things like that. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Good luck with all your video editing. Again, my name is Greg. You can subscribe to this channel if you found this video helpful, or if you want to get more updates and more videos on Canva. Thanks again. Have a great day. See you soon.